Our next thread is titled, Am I Overreacting? Sister-in-law this time. #need to rant. My mother-in-law just came downstairs. We live in her basement, yelling that my 6-year-old got a package, and my first thought was, I didn't order anything. It happens to be that my sister-in-law, without checking with me first, ordered a new doll for my daughter. She called yesterday saying she'll like it and would love to have one. I'm angry because I'm trying to teach my daughter to work hard in school and at home for the things that she wants, or to put it on her Christmas list, and then maybe we'll get it for you. Mind you, my daughter's room already looks like a toy store because she's the only granddaughter on my parents' side and the only granddaughter and the youngest on my husband's side. Before, I didn't have an issue because she was too young to understand the concept of working for what you want. Couldn't my sister-in-law wait until later this month and give her the doll as a graduation present? We just went through a thing about making plans to take my daughter places without consulting with me or my husband beforehand. She just promised my daughter, I'm picking you up on Sunday and taking you to, leaving me no choice but to agree so I don't disappoint my daughter. I feel she just wants to be the cool aunt. She doesn't do that with her own child, like she doesn't have candy or processed food at her house, but loves to bring them to our house for my daughter. I'm going to be probably quite a little bit judgmental about this one too, but maybe it's unfair of me. My judgment comes from this perspective of expecting everyone around you to parent your daughter for you and not having the self-confidence to be able to raise your daughter with values that make sense to you, or to explain to her certain things and deal with her disappointment, or just manage the fallout when she has emotions about those things, without everyone else in your family making it easy for you. In general, when it comes to parenting, I believe you are the central influence in your kid's life. At least when they're 6 years old, you are 100% the central influence on their life. And part of your responsibility as a parent is to explain to them the decisions that you make, to say no to them, to discipline them when it's needed, and to manage all of that despite the ways that other people interact with them. Now, that isn't to say I don't understand being frustrated if every single time your kid sees their grandparents or sees their aunt or sees their uncle, they are always giving gifts, and so they end up with this expectation and entitlement around gifts. I think under those circumstances, you can have a conversation with other adults in their life and say, hey, I understand why you want to give them gifts, and it's really awesome, it's really great, but kids been starting to get a little bit entitled and it's really not a good attitude, and I want to teach them a different attitude, and it's hard when you're working against me the whole time. I think that that's fair enough, having that level of conversation. I also think that you as a parent are completely within your rights to take gifts away from your children if you need to, and to say, hey, I know auntie bought you this amazing gift and you really, really want to play with it. You can have it, but then you have to choose another toy that you're not going to play with for now, and then I'm going to put that one away because you can't have too many toys out at the same time. For example, you can manage all of these situations however you want to manage them, and you can talk to your child. This particular situation that she says here, where she says, we went through a thing about making plans to take my daughter places without consulting me, because she says things like, I'm picking you up on Sunday and taking you to X. Now, from a communication perspective, I get being annoyed at that, but I also think it's completely fine for someone to say, hey, do you want to go to the zoo together? And for you to then step in and say, that's really awesome. We can organize that at a different date on this day. So for today, we're going to do something else. Learning how to manage your kids' disappointment, understanding that they're going to be disappointed sometimes, and that's okay. Understanding that they're going to be frustrated sometimes, and that's also okay. And just helping them work through those emotions is just part of being a parent, and that's okay. You cannot rely on the adults around your child to parent your child for you. So that's kind of how I feel about this one. I don't think it's such a big deal for her to buy her a gift. I understand wanting to teach your child the concept of working for what you want. And I think that you as a parent should be able to teach her that concept without getting super angry at her aunt for daring to buy her something. I don't think that that's the right way to behave, or the right attitude or mindset that you can have as a parent. Let's see what the comments say. First person says, I think you're overreacting. Sorry. Sometimes family buy gifts and we have little control over that. And then she gives an example of gifts that her mother-in-law gives her son. She says, I mean, he's 2. It's a little annoying, she says, as he now expects this every time, and on the odd occasion she hasn't got one, he looks in her bag for his car. I mean, he's 2 years old, but I feel it's a bit of a bad habit. And yeah, exactly. Once it gets to that point where it's habitual, I would definitely have a conversation with the grandparents to say, okay, look, this is really a problem, and I don't want him to associate you only with gifts, right? You want to try to build a relationship with your grandchild that's on a different level, that he appreciates your presence, he appreciates your advice, he wants to hang out with you, and that this is not attached to this materialistic expectation of, oh my God, I'm going to get a toy today. So to decouple that and for the health of your child and the health of their relationship together, I think that's a completely valid conversation to have with your grandparents, with your in-laws. But that's about it. In general, that there are some gifts that you might not want, and you have to manage that is pretty normal and pretty reasonable. Next person says, this is a you problem. I say that in the sense that it's your job to teach your kid whatever lessons you want. It's not the world's to give you a place to do that. So anytime you dictate others' actions that are not harmful to avoid having to deal with things that you're in the wrong. It's like being upset that a kid at school switched lunches with your kid and getting onto that kid. It's not the kid's job to make it easy for you to teach your kids about food choices. It's not your sister-in-law's job to facilitate this or any other family member either. Your kid will value working for things by working for them, not by only ever getting things they work for. The world doesn't mimic that reality. They'll get some free things. They'll get gifts and opportunities. So the point is to stop focusing on what others do when it comes to your parenting. Just parent your kid. Teach your little one how to value things given to them too. Teach them to show grace, teach them to donate, etc. And then OP says, it's true, my sister-in-law shouldn't facilitate my job as a parent, and now I see that's how it comes across. My issue is that she's doing something that wouldn't be acceptable in her view if it was her kid. Like with the candy. Oh, that has red dye in it, don't eat it. But she sends a basket of it to my daughter. And then this person replies, that's different. It's like a grandma giving her grandkid a cookie, but not if it was her child. Why? Because her kid would expect it every day. The grandkid sees her once in a blue moon, so it's a treat. We often treat others differently than our kid because they aren't our kids. Do we take our kids to the store every time we see them? No, because we see them daily. But a grandma may take a grandkid that she sees every 6 months. Parenting is a different role and requires much more rigidity and consistency. And so on and so forth. So yes, I completely agree with most of the comments on this one. I think it's tempting, and I think it's also one of the struggles, I guess, of being a parent is that you're always fighting against the influences that come from the outside. And those influences might be from other family members. Those influences might be from teachers. Those influences might be from their peer group. Those influences might be from the internet. But this is part of your role as a parent when it comes to setting boundaries that work for you and your child, and when it comes to instilling the right values in your child that you want them to have. So yeah, just a little bit of an overreaction. I get that it's annoying, but it's one of the struggles that you have to get through if you want to be a parent.